The history of the Mormon Church is filled with stories of its members seeking to establish new communities and convert people around the world to their faith. One such story involves the Church's attempt to create a Polynesian empire in the early 20th century. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Mormon Church was expanding rapidly. It had established a strong presence in Utah and throughout the western United States, and was looking to expand its reach overseas. One of the areas it focused on was the Pacific Islands, which were largely populated by Polynesians. The Church saw the Pacific Islands as fertile ground for missionary work, and dispatched a number of missionaries to the region. In addition to spreading the faith, however, they also had another goal in mind: to establish a Mormon-controlled Polynesian empire. The Church's plan involved creating a series of independent island nations that would be controlled by Mormons. These nations would be modeled on the Church's own hierarchical structure, with a central governing body overseeing local leaders on each island. The plan began to take shape in the early 1900s, when the Church established a mission in Samoa. It soon began to spread to other Pacific islands, including Fiji, Tonga, and Hawaii. In each of these places, the Church sought to establish a strong presence and convert as many people as possible to Mormonism. The Church's plan for a Polynesian empire, however, was ultimately unsuccessful. While it did have some initial success in converting people in the region, it faced a number of obstacles that prevented it from achieving its larger goals. One of the biggest obstacles was the fact that the Pacific Islands were already populated by indigenous peoples who had their own cultures, traditions, and systems of government. Many of these people were resistant to the idea of being controlled by Mormons, and saw the Church's attempts to establish a new order as a threat to their way of life. Additionally, the Church faced opposition from other colonial powers that were already established in the region. Both Britain and the United States had their own interests in the Pacific Islands, and were not eager to see a new power emerge that might challenge their dominance. Despite these challenges, the Church's efforts to create a Polynesian empire had a lasting impact on the region. Today, there are still many Polynesians who are members of the Mormon Church, and its influence can be seen in the architecture, culture, and language of many Pacific Island nations. While the Mormon Church's plan for a Polynesian empire ultimately failed, it remains an interesting chapter in the history of both the Church and the Pacific Islands. It reflects the Church's larger ambitions to establish a global presence and convert as many people as possible to its faith, as well as the complex geopolitical landscape of the Pacific region in the early 20th century.